Ooh, we are live, everybody. So, welcome back, everybody, to Pull Hook Golf, the podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cook. This is episode number 99, and it is the first episode of the new year. It is 2024, and man, I'm so excited for this year. I, first of all, have to thank every single one of our listeners out there. Thank you all so very much because we just reached the other day number 4 on the Spotify podcast list of top golf podcasts. So, man, 2024 is going to bring a lot of awesome things, and really looking forward to this year. We're going to have some awesome interviews. We're going to be moving into season 3 for our 100th episode next week. But tonight we're going to be talking quite a bit about the Sentry Tournament of Champions that's happening at Kapalua. We also have a new segment that we're going to be bringing out, which is the Swanee Style segment, which I'm really looking forward to because, yes, folks, you might have guessed it. Swanee's is back again, actually, over here on this side. Swanee's is back as a sponsor of the Pull Hook Golf podcast. We're excited to have them here in 2024. And then on that style segment, man, we're going to be doing a lot of cool things on there, including talking about some of the stuff that I'm going to be wearing throughout the year. But as you know, at the beginning of the year, sometimes some sponsorship deals start to take form, and some people are no longer in gear that you used to know. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about the latest in regards to the PGA Tour and the good old PIF, the Magic Dragon, and see how those deals are coming along. We've got some updates there, and then really the latest live golf news as our favorite ending segment of this show. We love talking about good old live golf. It's going to be in its 3rd season for the league this year, and expecting some big things out of there. Obviously, the John Rahm announcement. But before we get into our first segment around the Sentry Tournament of Champions, let's first of all thank our sponsor once again, Swanee's, which is bringing just some awesome clothing that is really conscious for the earth, the planet. I mean, that's kind of an important thing. So they use recycled plastics in their polos. I've got the hoodie on right now. I mean, these things are so comfy, and I just have to tell you, I mean, Swanee's, go get yourself a Swanee's piece of gear by going to swanees.co and then use promo code PullHookGolf25 at checkout for 25% off your entire order. You can thank me later. I know a lot of you already have taken advantage of this promo, and certainly we are grateful for that. And let's jump right into it, folks. So first off, Sentry Tournament of Champions, it is officially 2024. I can't believe it. I feel like I'm still recovering from New Year's Eve. I felt like I was Brooks Koepka out there with Jenna Sims and what they were doing. We'll get into that later on. But with this Sentry tournament, it's at Kapalua. I mean, what a great spot to start off the year at Kapalua. It is an interesting golf course because it is the only golf course that the guys are going to play all year long that is a par 73. So keep that in mind throughout the week. But this year it's a little bit different because we've got you either had to win on tour or you have to be in the top 50 FedEx Cup finishers at the end of the year. So we've got all the big names out there, excluding the ones that obviously went over to live golf. John Rahm, who could have been defending these past couple weeks, but here we go. I mean, we've got Jordan Spieth, we've got Ricky Fowler out there, we've got FedEx Cup champion Victor Hovland, we've got Scotty Scheffler out there this week, and I'm going to tell you, to start off the year, you know, you never really know who has kept their games in great shape. Normally on the PGA Tour, guys are trying to come out strong right from the get-go in order to make sure that they have a good year because, no, they do not have guaranteed contracts. And, yeah, they do have to earn it by making a cut. If you go into early episodes of the Pull Hook Golf podcast, you're going to hear me talk about the fact that I really, really like really, really like the fact that their salary's being paid out. I was a big proponent of that. I was somebody that, played on the mini tours and didn't have the means to continue playing on the mini tours. And that's something that I've seen time and time again. There's numerous stories about the journeymen who have just battled. Obviously, if some people come from wealthy families and so forth, they can hang on a lot longer to that dream. But at some point, a lot of guys have to pack it in or they become homeless. And you start hearing about stories about them driving from destination to destination in their car. I mean, certainly we talked with Kevin Streelman a few weeks back in December, and he talked about his journey on the mini tours and how he was driving around in his mom's Nissan in order to get from tournament to tournament, and how he was really starting to he couldn't press two nickels together, or two dimes, I believe was the saying he said. But certainly we are really, really interested in getting these players. Now, granted, the top guys, I totally get it. But there's guys out there that are at the bottom of the list that, there's a lot of expenses that goes into traveling week in and week out on the PGA Tour. And that's something that we're always interested in. But the one thing I will say, and the argument that the purists are going to tell me all day long and argue with this, because certainly a lot of people have, it is something that people like about the PGA Tour, that guys have to fight in order to make that cut, in order to make any money that week. So certainly there is that aspect to it. But this year, with this new setup, these guys are going to get paid. And certainly with some of these events that are going down, some of these, I totally blanked on the name of some of these events that are going to be happening throughout the year. They were the signature events last year. They've got a different name this year. I can't remember what it is. But while I'm kind of thinking of that, Thomas, thank you. We appreciate it. So Thomas said, hey, Matt, hope your new year went well. Excited for the new season. I'll tell you, my new year was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. I probably had a little bit too much fun on New Year's Eve. You might be able to hear it a little bit in my voice, but I'm trying to, play injured tonight. Not feeling the greatest, but we're getting there. Now, going back to Kapalua and the Plantation course, I mean, once again, this golf course just really brings out some of the best in guys, especially early on in the season. It's not a crazy difficult golf course, but it is one that you can get out there. You got to score well. Par 73, like I said. So you're going to have some opportunities. Now, let's talk a little bit about the guys playing in there and what we're looking at betting odds-wise. Because a lot of you, I know, I get requests all the time as to, hey, who do you think's going to win this week? We also are going to be talking to some betting experts this year as well. So we're going to be bringing them in so that you guys get the latest insights around that. But we're also going to be interviewing around some PGA Tour pros. In addition to that, get some more caddies on here and some businesses that are golf related that you might not be familiar with. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that we dive into this year. But going back to the betting odds now, certainly Scotty Scheffler being the number one player in the world. He, if you haven't seen some pictures of him this week, he apparently is taking the place of Jon Rahm, because he has a full beard and eerily looks just like Jon Rahm with the full beard, and it is dark too. So shout out to Scotty Scheffler. We're going to see if he's coming in strong. But really my point about what I was saying before is that a lot of guys come into the PGA Tour season ready to go. And that was something that over the past couple of years we haven't really seen that much of from Live Golf. It's one of the clips that was played out on social media by us through Millions.co, which we are live tonight on. And that being said, I don't love Scotty Scheffler at that first spot of plus 550. Now, the second guy in line there, good old Victor Hovland. Now, we did notice that down in the Bahamas at Albany, he wasn't super sharp. He had taken some time off. He was enjoying life, especially after the harsh ending to the season, which wasn't very harsh for him. It just was a grind, I should say, because Victor Hovland goes out there and he ends up winning the FedEx Cup last year. And those last couple tournaments, you saw how serious he was about his performance and about what he was doing out there. He looked like a machine. So Victor Hovland, I'd love to see what he brings to the table, but he's sitting as the second highest favorite odds at plus 850. Then a surprise in the third spot, Ludwig Aberg. He is sitting at plus 1,300. You got Colin Morikawa there as well at plus 1,300. I don't like Morikawa this week. I'm going to tell you straight up. Ludwig, everybody's got super high expectations because how he finished last year and last season. And then you've got Max Homa and Xander Schauffele at plus 1,400. I do like Max Homa this week. Max Homa, for some reason, I know he wasn't playing super well towards the end of the year, but he did have a win. He did end up having he was the best American player at the Ryder Cup. So I like Max Homa coming into this event. He's been grinding at his game out here in Scottsdale, and just think that he's going to play pretty well this week. So keep an eye on Max Homa this week. And that's really my pick for this week out there at Kapalua. But let me know in the comments. Who do you guys got? Who are you thinking is going to start off the season strong? Because starting off the season strong is very important. It really sets you up for the entire year, which is why I think a lot of guys really do hone in and focus on this first event, knowing that not everybody's coming in full strength or in full stride, so to speak. So I'd be curious to see who some of you have in the comments. Feel free to, after this live broadcast, to post them on Twitter or on Instagram when we post this episode. And again, really looking forward to this first tournament. We're going to see how this all pans out. Once again, top 50 players and then only tour winners last year. So it should be a really good tournament to watch. And those newbies that are out there that are just getting into golf for the first time, they're like, man, I have heard about this whole live golf PGA Tour thing. I'm checking it out. Well, PGA Tour obviously starts this week, and I think this is a great tournament to watch. You got some great pairings out there, too. Let me see if I have the pairings offhand here. Actually, I think they're on PGA's Instagram account. Let's just see what we got here for the pairings. PGA Tour. Thank you, PGA Tour, for posting those, by the way, because we've got the first group that they posted here is Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, and Victor Hovland. That's a great one to watch. And this is going to be, so round one, their tee time is going to be 4:39 p.m. Eastern time. You got 2:33 p.m. Eastern time for round two. Excuse me. We've got another great pairing as well, Xander Schauffele, that we're going to be talking about here in a second. Colin Morikawa, who not really feeling him heading into this tournament, but we shall see. He did play all right in the final couple of events, obviously from Hawaii and so forth, or his family and everything, so we shall see. And then good old Tommy Kim. Tommy Kim, everybody. What is Tommy Kim going to be up to this year? He kind of had that great coming out season and then kind of faded a little bit last year, kind of in that soft, more type of season. But Tommy Kim, I do like Tommy Kim. I'm a big fan of Tommy Kim, and I think hopefully he has a strong week, especially in that pairing with Xander and Colin. And then we got probably my favorite pairing out of all of them, which is Ricky Fowler. We got Max Homa, and we got Ludwig Aberg, who, again, there is so much hype around Ludwig for this year that I just don't know if he's going to be able to keep up. Everybody's telling me that he is, by the way. So everybody's telling me, no, he is the real deal. This kid is going to have a phenomenal year. He's going to win multiple times this year. Some people I even saw had him as a major winner this year, winning one of the 4 majors. I'm just like, whoo, boy, that is a tall task for this poor kid because expectations are the killers of dreams. So we want to be careful with the expectations we throw around somebody like Ludwig Auberg. I really hope that he has a strong year, but I don't want to put that type of pressure on him. But he's playing with Max Homa. I mean, talk about just Mr. Cool out there. And then you got Ricky Fowler, also Mr. Cool. So they paired him up with two really chill, good dudes out there to kind of welcome him into the 2024 PGA Tour season. And then you got Tommy Fleetwood, Tony Finau, and Patrick Cantlay. Going to be talking about Patrick Cantlay here in just a few moments as well in the new Swanee segment. You got Sam Burns, Sahith Theegala, Wyndham Clark. Actually, that's an underrated pairing right there. Sam Burns, Sahith Theegala, and Wyndham Clark. It's actually a pretty solid pairing if you ask me. Then you got Keegan Bradley, Terrell Hatton, and Matthew Fitzpatrick. He's been going by Matt lately. Everything that I see for him has switched over from Matthew to Matt. I think he got his braces off. He's feeling himself. He's got a cute little girly. So, kudos to him. Good for him. And that's all the kind of highlighted pairings that they put on the PGA Tour's social media account. Glad that Wyndham Clark is starting to get the hype and fame around him because he certainly deserves it. That dude, he broke out last year with the 2 wins, one of them being the U.S. Open win. But I do look for a little bit of I hope that was the launching pad for him into this season. I hope he doesn't have kind of that sophomore fallback season. I mean, he's been out on tour for a while, so it's not like, but I'm talking about from the first season of him winning and breaking through to now this year. I can tell you that he is pounding it away in the gym. I actually saw him the other day. He came in right after me and we shared the same personal trainer. So shout out to you, Ando, over at PFS Systems. And man, I'm really looking forward to this week. I can't say it enough. This week's going to be really, really fun. But without further ado, once again, my pick is Max Homa at plus 1,400. I like him for the win. If you want to throw him in a top 5 or a top 10, I think those odds will pay you out a little bit as well. Now for our new segment, which is the Swanee's Style segment. And here's the thing. New year, new you. As far as Jason Day is concerned. Because Jason Day, the longtime Nike apparel wearing golfer, he's no longer with Nike. And, they've been talking a lot about Tiger as well. Is Tiger still going to continue with Nike? Even at the PNC Championship, there was kind of that cheeky little back and forth around that with the media asking Tiger, are you still going to be with Nike? He's like, I'm wearing them right now, aren't I? So, sure enough, Jason Day, he's the first one going away from Nike. I don't know what that means for Nike's golf apparel. I know Nike Golf is doing well, especially on the Jordan side of things, because everybody's wearing the AJ1 golf shoes. Whether you're at a public golf course, at a country club, or on the PGA Tour, especially on Live Golf. Those guys, just absolutely everybody was wearing AJ1s out there on the Live Golf circuit. So certainly Nike's doing something right, and but their apparel side, I don't know. It's an interesting one to lose somebody like Jason Day or just let him go because he's on the come up. I mean, he's somebody that got his game back last year. He's looking good, and I think he's somebody to watch out for this year that is probably coming in a little underrated to what his game can really do as he's regaining his form. And Jason Day switches over from Nike to, and I even heard him say this, for some reason, the name Malbon. I guess it's Malbon. I have no idea, okay? It could be Malbon. So somebody please help me out with that pronunciation because I love their clothing as well. It's cool stuff. I mean, it's kind of a throwback. And certainly if you, I'm curious though, because as some pictures and as the press around his switch over, and they did a whole write-up with, forget whether it was Golf Magazine or with I think it was Golf Magazine, but or Golf Digest, one of those two. They did a whole kind of feature article and everything as a release of him switching over and being the first ever professional golfer to wear those clothes. Now, Twitter, I know you guys went nuts. I mean, because the long sleeves, the old school like FootJoy sleeves, that was the first thing that everybody was talking about with some of the pictures that came out of him in the gear, doing some of those shots and everything. And then the shoes that have the little flap over. I wonder, like, I know Twitter went nuts and basically mocked that whole entire thing, but I'm curious to see how many people actually like this style, this throwback vintage kind of style, because I think it's kind of cool. Obviously, with that, I'm going to do talk about the fact that Jason Day took a little bit of a shot at Nike in that interview and everything, as he said, one of the reasons for the switch is because, and granted, I don't love when people are like, oh, I switched because I like their style better. Let's be honest here. I mean, Malbon probably gave more money to Jason Day, or Nike just wasn't going to renew him. I don't know if Jason Day switched over because he just loves the style that much more. But he did say in switching that sometimes look across the tee box and I'd eerily see somebody in very similar clothing to myself. So Jason Day, that was an interesting comment to throw at Nike. A little bit of shade, spilling a little bit of tea there. But I do like it when guys are real and they're authentic, and that's part of this. We're competitive, especially in golf. You got some of the most competitive people in the world out there playing at this professional level, and it takes that level of competitiveness to play at this level. But it was really interesting to see him switch over. And then Xander Schauffele. A lot of speculation right now about Xander because he's not wearing the 3 stripes from Adidas. All day I dream of you know what. And with him leaving Adidas, apparently he's with this brand called the Sentry. I'm not familiar with that brand, but I will say this. It is interesting to see Xander Schauffele leaving Adidas. Another side to it as well is that those changes did spark a lot of, how do we put it, a lot of speculation on social media about the fact that the PGA Tour is losing all of these sponsors. Okay, well, this really has no relationship to that whatsoever. Everybody who's speculating on that, I think you're just absolutely reaching for something that isn't there and trying to make something of it. It's kind of like those hard conspiracy theories and everything. It's like, man, good luck with that stuff, bud. But that being said, Xander is switching over to Descente, at least for the time being. I don't know if there's a complete deal there or not. It has not been reported on, but he is out there representing Descente this week for clothing and is not wearing his usual Adidas product. So that was interesting to see. And here's the thing, folks. We see it every year. Every single year at the start of the year, you see new endorsement deals. You see guys wearing new stuff. I mean, guys are out there. They're going to be rocking some Swannies this year as well. So that's our Swanee Style segment. Just kind of giving you the latest in terms of clothing and style on the PGA Tour. I will say this, too, that we are going to be having an interview up with somebody from over at Swannies this year during this season or this upcoming season, because episode 100, it's going to start season 3 of this podcast. So we're looking forward to some of the interviews we got coming up. Now let's talk about something that I know everybody wants to hear about, which is the PGA Tour and PIF update. Because once again, I told you that they were not going to reach an agreement by December 31st, especially with the fact that Jon Rahm had been stolen away from the PGA Tour for $600 million in team ownership. Take that in for a second. $600 million. Okay? Now, they have extended the window. I know most likely if you're on social media, you probably have noticed a lot of people have reported on this around the fact that there's an extension in place now with PIF. But the one thing that I'm going to share with you is this agreement between the PGA Tour and PIF is not what it originally was. Okay? This is not a full-on merger anymore. This is not where the PGA Tour is going to take control of Live Golf, which means Live Golf is going to live on, which some people are going to hate, some people are going to love. Just really depends on how you're going to look at it. So that being said, now you might be asking, well, when is the new deadline? Because it really wasn't announced that there's a new deadline. And really, it's going to be through 2024. They're trying to come to a final agreement sometime around March. They don't want to really carrying on to the Masters and beyond. They don't want it to be a topic at that time. But there are a couple key things here to remember. And the first one is, 1 second, because I'm about to sneeze. Let me see if some water will help out with this. Not the Bushwood that I usually have on the show. So again, we're Michael Jordan in the flu game right now. We're just trying to push through and have the best episode we've ever had. Now, that being said, the memo that went out obviously talks about the extension, that hopefully they're going to be done by March. And really the goal in the memo, or this is actually how it was stated in the memo. Our goal for 2024 is to reach agreements with SSG, which is that sports or strategic sports group that has all the different sports ownerships and everything that are going to come together, PIF and the DP World Tour, bringing them on board as minority co-investors in PGA Tour enterprises. So that new entity is still going to take place, but a key there in the wording is as minority co-investors, okay? They still want their money from PIF, but no longer is this where PIF is going to be the big strategic partner in all of this that's going to finance everything across the PGA Tour. The deal soured, and it soured in a big way towards the end of last year. I mean, and that's what led to Jon Rahm getting that huge offer. So, and that was probably, they knew about that, gosh, I would say we all kind of started to know about it about 2 weeks prior to the announcement. And it started becoming big news, and that was before the Jordan Spieth hit the microphone and Tiger talked about it and everything, before it became official. But everybody kind of knew about it leading up to that, and things were not going well between the PGA Tour and my favorite entity, which is PIF the Magic Dragon, the fire-spewing money maker themselves that just has an endless stream of cash that it can blow fire on and just send anywhere it wants to, which, man, I wish I had those capabilities. But also with this whole entire PIF and PGA Tour deal, Patrick Cantlay, who's been the lead for the player side, which holds the majority now on the board, he came out and he addressed multiple issues around, this whole entire dealings and everything. And first of all, let me say that it was very PC. It was very polished in terms of all of his answers. And I will give credit to Jay Danzy and Jordan Lewittis because those two, if you don't know who those guys are, those are the agents for Jordan Spieth and for Patrick Cantlay. Those guys are class acts. I've done business with them, and certainly they helped Jordan Spieth early on with all of his press dealings, the media training, and everything, and they did a phenomenal job with Jordan Spieth. Now they're representing Patrick Cantlay, and it just seemed like, wow, this is coming from them. And in a way, like, you got to kind of respect it because you're like, all right, he came prepared. He's very polished. He knows all the answers to say. Took him quite some time, obviously, to come out and actually have that interview and go through all of the feedback around the Ryder Cup with Hatgate, and also with what Rory McIlroy said about him, and kind of throwing him under the bus as far as like that's the reason why Rory was leaving the PGA Tour Policy Board and Jordan Spieth was taking over. So that's kind of the scenario with this interview, but a couple kind of quotes from this. First of all, he talks about his responsibility, his role in the PGA Tour Policy Board. And he says, my goal being on the PGA Tour Policy Board is to represent all the members, both current and future, to the best of my ability. Now, that is addressing the feedback that he's all in it just for the top players in the world, like himself. I mean, Rory came out and said that. So, once again, I did mention before I prefaced this, before telling you about his quotes, that it's very PC and that it is very much so that he is just very polished with these comments. Now, I talk about it all the time. I love authenticity from players. I love it when they're real. I love it when they tell it how it is. So I'm not the biggest fan of some of these responses, although I know where it comes from, okay? That's why I preface this entire thing. And sometimes you need that, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you really just want the real. And in this situation, I don't think it would have been beneficial to him if he just kind of said it how it is. That's why these had to be very polished responses, almost like a politician out there. Now, talking about the Ryder Cup controversy, he addressed Hatgate. He said there was zero divide. I think if you ask all the assistant captains, the captain, the players, they would tell you it's one of the closest locker rooms they've been a part of. That doesn't say that he didn't want money for the Ryder Cup. But that's been a topic that David Duval talked about. He got destroyed when he talked about it. Tiger Woods has talked about it. Phil Mickelson has talked about it, that these guys should be paid for the Ryder Cup, that it's not just for pride, that they should be paid something for it. So that's not anything new, but obviously the media ran with that, and I feel like the media kind of assumed that there was a divide created because of it. But realistically, I think it brought the team actually together even more so. So he's not wrong in half of what he's saying there. However, once again, he doesn't actually, I mean, he's correct in pretty much probably the entire quote there. But he doesn't really talk about or hit on the fact that, yeah, he has a problem with the Ryder Cup and really wants the players to be compensated for the Ryder Cup. I don't know where I fall on that. I don't really have an opinion whether or not these guys should be paid or whether it should be pride-driven. I mean, I'm kind of on the page of, these are the best players in the world. They're making millions of dollars. So it's not like you're getting somebody at the bottom of the PGA Tour that's playing in a Ryder Cup. So it's a little bit different for me as far as like, everybody should be paid and compensated. Yeah, I'm going to think about that one in 2 years when the Ryder Cup comes back up. I'm going to have an opinion about it. But until then, not so much. Now, the last thing that I'll quote him on is he talked about his relationship with Rory McIlroy. This is the part where I feel like you could have gotten into this, okay? You didn't have to just go full PC mode on this one. Rory's been great, and the funny thing is with Rory, if you're a PGA Tour fan, you love all the shit that Rory's saying. Rory's coming out there, he's being real, he's talking trash to the Live Golf side and everything, and he's on the Live Golf side, everybody hates what he's saying. They are just trying to rip him apart for every little thing. So Patrick Cantlay says that I think we're both highly competitive. Once again, not wrong there. Not wrong, okay? And if you're reading between the lines, and you're actually looking at how PC he was about everything that he was saying, this was probably the one area where you're like, oh, I kind of get what he's saying here. That yeah, they were not liking each other too much in this entire PGA Tour policy board. They were not meeting eye to eye. They were competitive against each other, and they were being stubborn. And we're both trying to be the absolute best. So, what does that tell you? What Rory said is probably accurate, where he's like, I was trying to get money for everybody on the PGA Tour, one through however many, and then Patrick Cantley's sitting there just trying to get it for the top players and for himself and being selfish about it. So you've got two different perspectives, right? You got two different perspectives. You got these guys butting heads on it. So probably a little bit of competitiveness going on there, as Cantley talked about. And he said, I talked to him post-Ryder Cup, and, everything was cordial and all good. So he kind of spun it back to the PGA, or back to the Ryder Cup versus the PGA Tour policy board, right? So that's an interesting take as well. Again, you can kind of read between the lines with Patrick Cantley. And I will say one thing, like with Bobby Brown on this show, he has talked about the fact that he is a big fan of Xander as well as Patrick. So, they got those Cali connections. So I'm not going to say anything bad about Patrick. If I really felt a certain way about him, I would say it. But with this interview, I just wish it was a little bit more authentic, a little bit more of what he's actually thinking rather than being so PC and kind of political about it. Okay. So that's my take on that. And again, I encourage everybody that is out there in the professional golf world. And it really, that's what this show's all about. Unfiltered takes. We're going to tell you how it is. We're going to be authentic about it. Well, even when having Kevin Streelman on, you've never heard an interview like that from a guy like Kevin Streelman. Towards the end of that interview, starts to really open up. He even told me afterwards, like, wow, I've never said stuff like that really before in public. So that's something that, we want, that authenticity. Our audience wants it. You guys want it. So that's something that we try to bring week in and week out with this podcast. Now, the last topic that we are going to talk about tonight is, I know this is, whether you are a fan of this show or if you are a diehard Live Golf fan, or even if you're a PGA Tour fan, you're probably loving this segment. I got to be honest. I'm going to do this segment, great segment. It's the latest Live Golf news. It's my favorite topic because at times we get to have a little fun, little mockery. I like Live Golf, so we get into, especially once the league starts, we dive into our, the picks and everything, golf picks, but louder. Actually, we should actually switch that to golf picks, but quieter. Might be a little bit more of an appropriate segment. But Cam Smith got married. Well done, Cam Smith. Looking good out there with that mullet and the tux. It's definitely a look. Go on Instagram, check out his wedding photos that got posted. Hell of a look. His young lady looks very nice. So kudos and shout out to you, Cam Smith, for getting hitched right before the new year, and certainly, hopefully we get some big things out of Cam Smith. But I will tell you, from being somebody that got married last year, that in the lead up to a wedding, you think that you're not going to be stressed out. That could be why Cam Smith did not play great at the really last year. I kind of throw it out there as an entire year, but especially towards the end of the year. And then you noticed he was playing in some tournaments before getting hitched. So maybe he was just like, man, I need to play in some more golf tournaments because I need to get out of all this planning, like what kind of cake we want for this wedding, like getting dragged in to all those decisions that are so important to the ladies. And certainly Cam Smith doesn't look like a guy who really cares about certain things that are going on with a wedding, like what color plate should we have, what type of silverware should we have. So maybe that was dragging Cam Smith down a little bit, because I love seeing great golf from Cam Smith, and hopefully this marriage, getting that past him, he's got smooth sailings now, because he gets a little less stress, don't have to worry about a wedding anymore, and he can just go on and play some golf. So shout out to you, Cam Smith, on getting hitched right before the new year. And then you got another live golfer who just went absolutely ham out there. He went hard as a mother. Good old Brooks Koepka. Man, lit up. I mean, I was probably partying just as hard as you were on New Year's Eve. So shout out to you, man. You had the sparklers in front of Jenna Sims' boobs, and I mean, just having yourself a blast. I mean, when that camera came on you, it was, I am locked in tonight. So Brooks Koepka brought in the new year, going hard as a, or in other words, ham. You know, that was an old saying back in the day, and hopefully we can bring that back. So Brooks Koepka, once again, kudos, shout out to you for doing it right, bringing in the new year. Then we got Jon Rahm. Still doesn't have a team. He does not have a supporting cast right now. Remember when Greg Norman was like, oh, everybody's fighting to be on Jon Rahm's team. They're all wanting to come over and sign deals. Where are these guys? Because Jon Rahm doesn't have a team. We're only a month away from the first event. Where is Jon Rahm's team? Where are the announcements? I'm sure in the weeks to come. I would go out on a limb and say they're trying not to be desperate. They're trying really hard to see if they can get some bigger names in the door before they start announcing these guys. Like, I bet you they've got a couple guys that are kind of, not no-namers, but good golfers that are young, that don't really have a name built up. Maybe they're playing on the DP World Tour, and they're trying to get them to come over. There was that one guy that, I forgot his name on the last one. Forget his name this time. I didn't have it written down. I wasn't going to talk about it, but, you get thinking about things like Jon Rahm not having a team, and you're like, oh, there was a Spaniard who, younger guy, maybe he is going to become part of the team. But it was very telling when over the holidays they do the cartoon stuff, and they had each team and the captains of each team and their gear and everything as a cartoon. And Jon Rahm's just sitting there right in the middle and just wearing his Live Golf gear. I think he had his Live Golf high school bomber jacket on and a L hat. The L hat. The L hat is just something else, man. I go back to Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Lahoo, Zaher. So L's are just not necessarily a great thing to be throwing on your forehead. So he's sitting there with the L cap on, with the Live Golf bomber jacket, and I'm just thinking to myself, shit, they don't have a team for him yet. Like, when are they going to announce his actual team name, logo? How rushed is that thing going to be? Because remember when everything first came out, everybody's like, oh my God, the logos look like they're from like MS-DOS or MS Paint. It's like, good Lord, this is horrible. Well, be patient, everybody, because, Greg Norman, as much as people love to criticize Greg Norman, that dude figures some shit out. And he is a good businessman at the end of the day. I don't agree with, the bravado that goes along with like a lot of the stuff that he says, just so that it's almost like clickbait, some of the stuff that he says. Like, oh, this business model has been proven out. Like, no, it really has. I mean, unless you have PIF, the magic fund, just absolutely funding you with endless amounts of money. There was also, for the Live purists out there, which I know there's a few of you, and then there's a lot of bots out there too. Most people are kind of have a common sense around Live Golf. They either like it and, they appreciate the PGA Tour as well, or they like both, kind of like myself. But then you got the fringe, right? You got the fringe people that are the Live lovers that just go absolutely crazy whenever anything bad is said about Live Golf, or anything that is like a fact. Well, guess what? There was the amount of revenue that they made that started to leak out from last year, and it's less than $100 million, and you know how much that they put into this damn thing. Good luck ever getting that money back, especially when you just paid a guy or put him into a contract for $600 million and you don't own the 100% of the teams. It's an interesting whole ordeal. But again, going back to Greg Norman, he is a good businessman at the end of the day. He's made moves, okay? You got to give him some credit. I mean, yeah, he's got an endless checkbook that he can just write checks for, but he does not accept everybody in the amount that they have asked for. Hence Tony Finau and some of the other guys that were interested in potentially going over and being a part of this with Jon Rahm, and that is not happening, right? So that being said, Jon Rahm, you need a team, man. You can't just go play live golf by yourself. You need a team. And I hope that he gets a team and I hope that he takes he didn't take this offseason so seriously once he got that big check and everything. But I do hope that he comes out firing because he is one of the best players in the world. And I am going to be excited seeing him out there as a live golfer, maybe even more so than him on the PGA Tour. I don't know. We'll see. But as we move into the next part, which is that I did mention about people that had numbers that they wanted to be met by live golf in order to switch over. And over the holidays, we did find out about one, which was good old Billy Horschel. Our guy Mike is on his bag. And Shirley Ian Poulter, who those two, they've had a history together, okay? They're buddies, but at the same time, they've had issues, and they love taking digs at each other. Well, they got into it on social media. Ian Poulter was commenting on distances of golf balls and saying, oh, those numbers are fake from My Spy Golf. Billy Horschel comes back and is like, well, that's not your swing speed, because he was talking about I swing at 115 miles per hour. I only carry the ball 290. You're showing 360 or 330 for carry. That's not correct. And then you got Billy Horschel, who starts bringing up past numbers from the PGA Tour, and Ian Poulter's about 110, 109. Gosh, I have to sneeze so bad, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to play hardball here with it. But Ian Poulter then goes and leaks Billy's amount that he wanted to join live golf, which was $45 million. Good amount of money. I'll tell you, I bet you right now that Greg Norman is probably thinking, man, I screwed up on that one. We should have given Billy $45 million. He could have been on Jon Rahm's team. So who knows if that's going to take place or not? I have no idea. I don't have insider information around it nearly at all. And then just when you think, because both of them got a lot of kind of hate on those from both directions, and Billy came out and was like, hey, is this just two friends taking shots at each other on social media? Well, then Poulter comes back today and made a few comments to Billy Horschel again on another post. So I'm just like, man, these two, they need to get into, we need to go from YouTube boxers, where those YouTube celebrities are getting to the boxing fights, to all of a sudden we get PGA Tour live golf boxing. Guys, I might be onto something here. I just thought of that. And that might be a multi-million dollar, not multi-million dollar. I mean, we could be talking about billions of dollars here. Billions. Like Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather type of money here, where you get some of these guys in the boxing ring, get Greg Norman versus, I wouldn't throw Greg Norman in there against Jay Monahan. I don't think that would be fair. I say you throw him in there against good old Tiger. Tiger versus Greg. You know, you got Jon Rahm, who, man, he's probably close to a heavyweight. I'd probably say, gosh, who would be close to a heavyweight on the PGA Tour side. But man, that would be an interesting take. Start doing some of these PGA Tour Live Golf boxing matches. That could be a lot of fun. That could be that would make a lot of money. But Ian Poulter and Billy Horschel, they would have to get in there and just duke it out. And I'm telling you, I've got a really good feeling that Billy Horschel's going to take that one. I don't know if Ian Poulter is that, So, that being said, that's all I got for everybody here to get the year started in 2024. Once again, we talked about the Sentry Tournament of Champions tonight. My pick is Max Homa. Looking forward to that tournament coming up this week. And we're kickstarting the year, man. We are kickstarting it. So next week, hopefully we're going to have a little guest come back on and we'll talk about that. But we've got a recap of the Sentry Tournament of Champions that's obviously going to go on this week. We're going to talk about the Sony Open, which is that short little flight that these players get to take over, and we're going to talk about that as an upcoming event. And then hopefully there's more news that goes on, and we talk about it. So really looking forward to next week, everybody. Thanks again, and thank you, everybody, for getting us up to the 4th spot on Spotify for Top Golf Podcasts. I am pumped about that. So thanks again to everybody out there that is listening to this podcast. I think we've got about 1,500 of you that have been on live tonight that have been watching. So again, kudos and shout out to the audience for everything that you are doing for us. Thank you, Swannies. And for all of our listeners, go to swannies.co. Get yourself 25% off at Swannies Golf using promo code PullHookGolf25 at checkout. That is all one word, PullHookGolf25 at checkout. Get yourself 25% off of the latest Swannies gear. And once again, thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year.